Hey guys, so today we are going to do a fun video based off an inspirational photo that I put up on my page the other day. It was a barn door. I came across it in one of my paint forums and I absolutely fell in love with the look and figured, okay, I could do this. And so the lady that originally did this project, she listed out what she used as well as the steps. And so I figured, all right, I'm going to give this a try. She didn't do a video tutorial or anything like that. She just posted 5 different pictures and she said what she used, and she kind of showed each picture's stage. So I'm going off of that and seeing if I can kind of copy the same look because I loved it so much. So I figured what fun to do it on camera today with you guys. And what we're going to use for our project piece is just this decorative cutting board. I got it at Michael's. It's like, I don't know, $5. So, you know, if it doesn't turn out, then it's a $5 board that I can just kind of toss in the trash and it's no big deal. No, I don't toss things in the trash. I do find a way to reuse. So if it doesn't work out, we'll repaint and do something different with it. But anyway, I figured it would be a fun project to do with you guys today on camera. Like I said, I had all the supplies that I needed in my shop already. So we're going to use, she used a different paint brand base, but it's basically the same color. I'm going to use the General Finishes Antique White, and then we're going to go in with the Dyke brown glaze, and then we finish it off with a lamp black wash, and I'll explain that a little bit later in the video as we're doing the process. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive in and get started. Okay, so we are just going to go in with my Klingon F50 like always, and we're going to go ahead and lay down some of this paint. I've put cardboard underneath because this is such a thin little piece. I didn't want to paint all over the top of my desktop here, my workshop. So I'm just going to go in and give a good layer of the antique white. I love this General Finishes Antique White, and I'm going to get in here in all the areas. The idea was to lay down a really nice solid first coat, and then after that we may go in with a second coat. It's just going to depend on how well this covers, and I'm going to go ahead and get all the edges and all the sides here too. And then once we let this dry, we'll go ahead and check this coat to see if we like how well it covered. And if it's covered well enough, then we'll go ahead and proceed with the next step. If not, we may want to recoat it. The idea on the project is to get down a really nice solid base to begin with. Now we are going to cover that up with the other colors, but it will show through. So you want to make sure you have a nice solid base down. And I think we're going to have to go through with a second coat because I can just kind of see already that it's not going to give it, you know, one coat isn't going to cover it. So let's go ahead and let that dry. I'll come back after I do my second coat and we'll go on into the next step, which is the glaze, okay? All right, you guys, so we're ready now to go ahead and put on our Dyke brown glaze. Now, normally when you glaze, you put it on and you wipe it back. In this case, she didn't do that, so I'm going to follow what she did and just layer my glaze on and let it dry. So for this, we're going to use the foam brush, and we're just going to go ahead and put on a light layer. You're not going to go on real heavy. Now, I've never done this type of glazing before. Normally, I put glaze on and take glaze off, but in this case, we're just going to paint it on and leave it on. So I just dip in my brush into the glaze. I want to get it in all these little cracks and crevices. So we're going to go ahead and cover our board with the glaze. I'm just doing light sweeping motions. I'm not going too heavy. And putting it on with this foam brush is a really easy way to do the application. We're not concerned about it looking funky with any kind of a brush stroke or anything like that, because the next step after this one is to sand it. So we sand, and that's why we're not wiping back this glaze, because we're going to sand and make it look, kind of take it off, I guess, if you will, that way versus wiping it away. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to stop. I've covered my piece with the glaze. Now we're going to go ahead and let this dry, and when we come back, we'll do the sanding portion of the glaze, and then we layer our black, watered down lamp black paint. Okay? All right, guys, so what I wanted to do was go ahead and continue right now with the video, and unfortunately, because of the way we applied the glaze and we did not wipe it away, the dry time for it is going to take a lot longer than I thought. It's, you know, glaze sets up really quickly and actually can be really challenging to work with when you're trying to wipe it back. Because we didn't do that in this case, because I want a very heavily glazed look to mimic the barnwood, I left it. Well, our weather today is kind of wet outside, it's not very warm, so it's not going to dry fast, so I'm going to let this sit overnight. It is not ready to sand just yet, so we're going to come back tomorrow. And I just wanted to make note of that in the video, that if you guys try this, definitely let that glaze sit overnight before you go and attempt to do your next step, which is, for us, it's going to be sanding and then applying that black wash. So I will be back tomorrow, okay? Hey guys, so we are back and we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step of our process. I did let this dry overnight, as I mentioned in the earlier segment, but I wanted to make a note that it was pretty much dry after about 4 or 5 hours. I came out after dinner last night and it was ready to go, but I wasn't ready to go, so I just let it sit overnight. Coming back to it today, we're going to go ahead and sand it. Right now it's got that base layer of the antique white. We went ahead with the Van Dyke brown glaze. We did not wipe that glaze off. All I did was apply it and let it dry. So if you don't want to wait overnight, you really don't have to. I would say a good 4 or 5 hours before it's going to be ready to sand though. So keep that in mind. What we're going to use, I've got two things here. I've got one of my sanding pads. I have several of these from Annie Sloan. They make a fine, medium, and a coarse. This is the coarse sanding pad. I would say this is equivalent to probably a little rougher than a 220 grit sanding pad. And then if that doesn't suffice, I've got my sandpaper. This is 320. They're both very fine. We don't want to etch it and put a lot of scratch marks in it. We're just trying to remove some of that glaze finish and kind of rough it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and tip the camera down and move on to our next step, which is the sanding. And then we can do our black glaze or black wash. So stay tuned. Okay, so we're going to come in first with our sanding pad and see how I like the way that that's working. The idea here is to not sand it so fine that you're, looking to get this perfect finish. As you can see here, I want to show you on a couple of spots on the board, I'm heavier, and that's okay because the look is supposed to be like this kind of rough barnwood look. And so we don't need this to be perfect. So just when you're sanding, you don't need to apply so much pressure because you're really not working to remove too terribly much. So let's just see how this one works. I think this one's going to work just fine. So I'm just going to go back and forth without trying to make my piece go on the floor. But I'm going to go back and forth because what I'm doing now, this is exactly what should be happening. We're giving this a worn look, but what's wearing through is that first coat of paint, which I'm loving. So I'm going to do half the board so you guys can see in comparison to the other half, so you can see how much of a difference it makes. And you can see where the look is starting to come together. So let's just give it, and I say don't use heavy pressure, but I would go about medium. I mean, just go to what you want. Some people might want more of that white underneath to come through. So if you do, go a little heavier. I would say I'm doing about a medium pressure, and I'm totally loving this. So let me show you guys the difference here. How cool is that, right? I'm almost loving the fact that that's our look, but we're going to add one more dimension to it. But look at that. So this is the unsanded portion, and look at the difference, right? That's just, we put glaze on, we let it sit, we didn't touch it, we didn't wipe it back, and now it's dried and we've sanded it off. I love this look. Love. Okay, so I'm going to sand the other half off camera, and then we're going to come back and put our black wash on. Okay, so this is our whole board that's been sanded. I totally love this look. Now what we're going to do is add a black wash to it. And what does that mean? Well, all I did, and I wish I had a little Dixie cup bowl. I don't have any, so I had to mix mine in a cup. But all that means is that I have completely watered down this paint. There was no formula that I used. I just kind of want, and I'll show you when I dip the paintbrush in just a minute. As a matter of fact, I'm looking for a stir stick. guess I can use one of these guys here. Make sure it's really stirred up nicely, but I want to show you on camera. See how thin that is? It's literally like water. It's just very watered down. I used probably 50% water, 25% paint if you need some sort of a ratio. But the bottom line is all you really need is just a very watered down paint, because we don't want it to be heavy. If we went on with just the paint right now, it would obviously cover, and we don't want to do that. So all I'm going to do is dip my brush in here, and then I'm going to wipe it off because I don't want a lot of product on there. So as you can see, it doesn't really even look like I have a lot on my brush. And now we're just going to wash this black on. And here's the fun fact. If you put too much on, guess what you can do? Take your sanding pad again and sand it back. So if you, for some reason, don't feel like you got the formula right, you feel like, oh, that's too heavy, I didn't want that much black, then you literally can fix that with the sanding. Now, I will tell you, I am going so incredibly light on my brush strokes, and as you can see, there is hardly any product on there. I obviously overmixed, but I'm gonna save this and use it for something else, so that's okay. But I'm not even dipping back in right now just because I have enough product on the paintbrush that it's achieving the look that I want it to have. And pretty much I'm done with that portion. So let me show you that wet. That's with our black wash. I'm gonna tip it this way because it's better. That's with our black wash. So now we're gonna go ahead and let that dry. Because it's so watered down, it's probably not gonna take that long to dry. And I actually don't even know how long it's going to take to dry. So when I come back, I will make sure I let you know the time that it took to dry. So we're gonna come back in just a little bit. Okay guys, so we have let that black wash dry, and I think it's come out just gorgeous. This is exactly like I wanted it to look. You can see in certain areas it's heavier. Well, let me turn it this way for you guys. You can see that it's heavier in some areas than it is in others. I absolutely love the way it came out. I cannot actually wait to test this out on some sort of a larger piece. Maybe a dresser top, I'm thinking would look really cool to do this. But I've got one more step, and that is I am going to put a sealer on it. And I've opted to go with the General Finishes High Performance Top Coat in Satin. It's absolutely one of my favorite top coats to use. And not that you need to see this step on camera, but I'll do it anyway. So top coats, I actually get a lot of questions about how to top coat because it can be the most challenging part of a project. So what I like to do is just dip and go. The key to having a good top coat is to not overwork it. And so basically, I don't wipe off too much of my brush either. So I dip in, I'm using a foam brush. Especially for this small piece, it's really easy. For larger pieces, what I tend to do is I have a little hack that I use, and that is using a stain sponge, covering it in a nylon, and then applying it, because for larger areas, it works really well. For the small areas, this is fine. So this goes on kind of a milky white, as you can see in the can. It's a milky white, and then it dries down clear. So anything you see like right now, right here in this line that I have going on, it's kind of milky white. It will dry clear. So the key to the high performance top coat and getting a nice finish is not to overwork the area. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave this be. We're gonna let this dry down, and we will close up this video, and that's it. So exciting. It came out really cool. It came out exactly like I thought it would come out. So I love when that happens. All right, you guys, we are at the end of the video, and I could not be happier with the way that the project turned out. I had no idea how this was gonna go, so it's always a pleasant surprise when something you've tried for the first time actually comes out the way you intended it to. So I'll show you guys a still photo at the end of the video so you can actually take a really good look and see, but we'll also preview it now. This is the end result, and it is gorgeous. I love it. Can I just say how much I love the General Finishes High Performance Top Coat? I tell people all the time it's what I coat all my furniture with, but I love, look at that sheen. This is just the satin, so it gives you just a slight sheen, but a lot of protection. So this is exactly the way I wanted it to come out. So let me show you up close so you can take a peek. That was not difficult at all. So we took a piece from Michael's that was just raw wood, nothing special, and we turned it into an old looking piece of barnwood, basically. I mean, you guys, this is paint and glaze. That's it. We didn't use any staining or anything. So this just goes to show you that you can achieve a really cool look with different paints, and I just love discovering that and doing that. So what did we use? We used the General Finishes. I used all the General Finishes line, and that's just because that's one of my preferred lines that I use for all of my pieces. You could use any line that you wanted, or you could mix and match the different lines. It doesn't matter. I laid this down with a base coat of antique white. I went ahead and glazed it with the Van Dyke brown, which I totally forgot how much I loved that product. I haven't used it in a long time, and I love it. I don't know why I don't use it more. And then we sanded that. We put our lamp black wash, which was kind of like a 75-25, 75% water, 25% mix of paint. You just want it very, very liquidy, and very little goes on. And then I top coated it with the high performance top coat in satin. Love it. Absolutely think this is a fun project. So this is something you can do. You need paint, glaze, and another paint. Totally easy. I will list the products down below that I used, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Thank you for being subscribers. I certainly appreciate it. Please keep subscribing so you can get all of my videos, and I will catch you on the next one.